Hello and welcome to episode 216 of Stand Up. Joining me today, the great Dr. Aaron Carroll and the always brilliant and hilarious Christian Finnegan. But before them, I'm going to talk with a whole bunch of my friends who I just watched the debate with. My name is Pete Dominic. It's time to stand up with me right now. Yeah, we're off and running, and I've got like 65 people in a Zoom hangout. We all just watched the debate together, and now we are going to talk about it. If you want to join us in these, you got to sign up, be a subscriber to the podcast, and be a part of our growing community. And it's great to see all you guys tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, it's a lot more fun to watch that shit show by also watching your facial expressions, reading the chat, seeing everybody's reactions, and then, of course, knowing that I have you here and we have each other here to discuss it when it's all over. And I don't know, I certainly prefer this rather than watching whatever panel they put together on cable news, because they just outrage me, and I don't get to say anything because I'm not always invited to that panel. I'd way rather hear what you guys have to say, and I'd love to get a diversity of opinions. And if we want to argue, we can argue. Some of you like this, some of you like that, about what happened. We can talk about the moderator. But who wants to get us started and just basically tell us, who do you think? Actually, let me ask you a specific question. How do you think the moderator, Kirsten Welker, did? Is it Kristen or Kirsten Welker? Anybody want to weigh in on that? Prakash.
Hey guys. So I actually, thanks for having this set up, by the way. I actually think the moderator, it was a different experience. I really think that my wife thinks Trump got his Valium today. He was a lot calmer, and he was kind of waited for Trump to, sort of Biden to make some of those moves. From my own selfish perspective, I think Trump did a lot better than I was hoping he would. I thought it would be another, I was hoping it would be another chaotic show, but I think it was a lot more controlled and measured. And one of the things.
All right, well, hold on a second. I want to say thank you, Dr. Prakash Gada. Love you, buddy. Let me stay with the moderator. Anybody else want to react to what they thought, how they thought the moderation of tonight's debate went?
I wouldn't mind jumping in on that beat.
Oh, it was like a dramatic. John Donvan literally appears on my screen to weigh in on the. Oh my God, that was so awesome. Good. And I'm taping it. Hey, John Donvan, moderator of Intelligence Square debates. It's like Batman just showed up, sir.
I was. I think that Ms. Welker is the best moderator we've seen in a couple of cycles, and she really kept her cool. And I don't know if she was controlling the mic or if it was just sort of automatic that would go after 2 minutes, but it was the tool that made a big difference, but also her demeanor and the fact that, you know, the last debate, the Chris Wallace debate, and then the vice presidential debate, the moderators didn't really want to make one of the candidates stop talking and kept saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, when the thing to have done would have been to basically say, stop talking, which she did by talking over him, by continuing to go. And he yielded and ultimately ended up respecting that. And also, she took some of the uncomfortable questions back to Biden, questions that were uncomfortable for him. And, you know, I'm sure there are people on both sides who think that she was working for one team or the other. As a moderator myself, I think she did a fantastic job in a difficult situation, but greatly, greatly, greatly aided by the tool of that mic switch.
Yep. Having that mic switch, just being there, changed his behavior potentially, but he certainly didn't behave the way he did for Chris Wallace. He was on better behavior, it would seem, John. No?
Yeah, unquestionably he was, and I guess he read the reviews from last time that kind of presentation didn't work in his behalf last time.
Plus, he didn't have COVID this time, which probably made him a little bit more.
Yeah, potentially.
I mean, but he actually had COVID.
I really felt like we were watching a debate. I actually thought we heard. She asked questions that one would then answer on point, and the other one would respond maybe to not at the initial question, but would respond to the first answer. And and they would go around and around. And after 6 or 7 minutes, they had actually started to penetrate a topic and in a really at least counter-responsive way. Whether the things were being said were true or not, that's a whole other question. But they weren't pivoting off into too many talking points, and they weren't delving constantly into personal attacks. So I thought it was actually a debate.
Well, I am psyched that you're here, and I'd love to hear more of your reaction if you can hang out longer. But just getting your reaction on the debate moderator and the way that you showed up was awesome. John Donvan, great to have him here. Who else wants to weigh in on anything? Well, let's just have it be a free-for-all now, moving on past the moderator, unless anybody wants to go back to it. Who thinks that, I haven't said anything. I just think that Joe Biden was on point tonight. I think that he was very motivated, very articulate. He had a lot of energy. He was as well-spoken as he's been. And a couple of times he just moved the conversation along when he said, no, I don't want to talk about that anymore. When he said, because we had a Republican Congress, that was a very succinct answer and a good answer. I thought Biden did really great tonight. And if you're trying to paint him as an old, doddering, sleepy, senile guy, that just didn't work. And I think he did what he had to do. And I think that Trump looked like an asshole for the most part. That's my thoughts. That's the most I think I'll probably say. Now going back to you guys, who else wants to weigh in on debate night? RJ, I'm calling on RJ. RJ, you're on.
I agree with you. I think, number one, the moderator was better, and it was the switch. I think that helped that a lot. I think Biden stayed on point. Trump had the same old lines, and I'm sure they gave him some sedatives to calm him down, or maybe it was the COVID. But,
maybe it was the COVID is always my favorite answer. RJ, thank you. Yeah, let's try to get everybody in here and try to be, quick. Jump in, get some comments so we can get a lot of comments, and you don't have to say anything. I want to hear from some ladies, but let's go to, I haven't heard from any women yet. Come on, ladies. Alan Dutch.
Hey, I'm wondering if anybody is feeling the same way I am about these last few debates. I feel like the questions are almost written from as if maybe Frank Luntz or somebody was writing the questions for the moderators. They feel a lot like Republican talking points in a lot of ways. They kind of take that attack angle or that angle going towards both candidates. I don't know what does anybody else.
The framing of kind of where the question comes from on the issue. I think I hear what you're saying. It sounds a little bit too maybe right of center for where the country is at and how you might frame that question a little differently. That's a really interesting point. Jackie, I see your hand up. You're on, Jackie.
I think Biden landed a lot more hits this time. And, with the format being a little more normal, it came through a lot better. I did love that Trump mocked him for reaching out to American families, because I feel like that plays really well.
I said on Twitter, I do think I agree with you. What you just said about him mocking him was ridiculous. But I do think that, like, when Biden or any politician says, families are sitting around their table trying to figure out how to pay their bills and stuff. Like what I tweeted, which is like fairly accurate, is like, we're really probably just retire that line. I mean, I'm sure people are sitting around a table somewhere talking about their anxiety. But most of my anxiety with my wife talking about these issues are like just texting while I'm driving. Let's be honest. I mean, I'm not sitting around the table. We're all working too much. Who gets to sit down around a table? Who are those people that aren't too busy? Anyway, but great points, Jackie. Who else wants to weigh in on the debate? How did Trump do? How did Biden do? How was the moderation? How were the issues? I got very triggered when they talk about race, of course, when they talk about climate, of course. That's when I really am almost like I'm jumping out of my skin listening to that. Karen Madison, you're on stand up.
So when Trump was mocking Biden, I know it was cheesy, but it was also like, fuck families. Like, so I thought it was really poor taste, like Trump usually does. And when he was asked to address race, and he just started going in on Biden about the crime bill from years ago, like, I get it that was a huge and grotesque mistake, but you're still not addressing anything that faces me today.
Right.
So as I go out today, and if I got stopped by the police, I'm going to wet my pants. Like, you're still not helping me right now.
I still don't understand why he doesn't simply say, black people should vote for me, because he and Republicans don't want black people to vote. Literally, they're doing everything they can to make sure black people can't vote. So we can argue about education policy or healthcare policy or economic policies and how to best benefit black folks. But he doesn't want you to vote. He's doing everything he can to make it harder for black folks and black communities to vote. I don't know why he doesn't say that.
Yeah. So it's just, he's so nonsensical. And I did appreciate Joe Biden, though. I thought he came with a couple of zingers, and it wasn't like an old man saying it. He was with it.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. John Carroll, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Pete. I think that Joe came around a little more without mentioning, I don't think the Green New Deal came up per se, but he moved a little closer to the new era in clean energy. In fact, it took Trump a little by surprise, and he wanted to really lay into him about it. But I think he went there bravely to talk about it at all, and I think he also was brave in saying that the policy for the drug laws in the 80s and 90s was a mistake. And he showed compassion. We know that he's compassionate, but I think Trump showed such a just completely devoid of any compassion, because he is devoid of it. But it was very egregious tonight, it seemed, and to the point where I would just imagine that there's some folks in his base that are just kind of feeling in the pit of their soul that this guy doesn't care about anybody. I mean, I would imagine that they're feeling that on some level, because it was so palpable tonight for me.
Yeah, great comments, John. I appreciate that. I tweeted, Biden should replace thug with Kim when talking about Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un is starving and killing his own people and family members, and you are writing him love letters. Those are Trump's words, love letters. Also, along the lines of what you just said, John, I mean, I just think that this guy is the most evil, horrible, disgusting man as he talks. I don't know how people still can't realize that. He is a mean, cruel, horrible son of a bitch. And how you can't see that is just, I don't know. It seems so overt. Sadist. Dan McDonald's sitting in front of a screen with, it does seem to appear, a photograph of the late, great Jeffrey Toobin. Why would you?
Because it's a sad Jeffrey Toobin. Okay. That's why I put it up there.
Would you mind just standing up to make us feel safe? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
So a couple things. One, John, I disagree. I think it's pretty clear that, of course, China and India, all of it is filthy, right? Can we all agree on that? Of course not. Such unpopular things he's saying, right? Which is really, really weird. And he continues to do that, which is really, really weird. But the one thing I want to say about the moderator, I won't take up too much time, the moderator, is that, yeah, I agree. Some things she could have pushed back more on, but she was actually doing real-time fact-checking. The first time I've seen that, right? Especially in the beginning, there was some actual real-time fact-checking going on, even if offhanded comments, just to kind of, just shut down some of the lies. It was the first attempt that I've seen thus far in these debates of a moderator doing that type of thing, right? So I thought it was a net plus overall for the moderator, and certainly a net plus for Biden overall. How much it matters in terms of, people that can be swayed, I don't know. But overall, I think I think if there are people looking for an excuse to vote for Biden, I think he won that battle.
Yeah, great comments. I think anybody who is undecided right now is lying. They're just trying to get booked on some kind of a cable news panel or focus group that promised them if they showed up to answer their questions, they got to be on TV, plug their Twitter, and get a free slice of pizza. But how could you possibly still be undecided? John Zigafos and his girlfriend, Hope Hicks, everybody. Fiance? Wife? I always forget.
Fiance. My name
common
is...
law wife, actually.
Yes.
Oh, common law wife. All right.
We're common law married. My name is Lacey. So I have a little bit of a different perspective, and I need to start out with saying I voted for Obama in 2012. I voted for Hillary in 2016, and I've already voted for Biden. I think Biden won. But I don't think that the public is going to see that way. I think that this whole format only helps Trump. I think he looked calm and collected. Trump could literally say that unicorns exist. They're going to shit out 401ks and Santa's going to deliver them to everyone by Christmas. And his constituents are going to believe that. And it doesn't matter. A lot of people
don't know that there's going to be, if you vote for me, of course, and if you don't, I'll never come back to your state, but there's going to be an election and a unicorn who will shit 401ks from the sky directly to your home. A lot of people don't know that. Kevin, get in here. Kevin Richburg is flipping out and think in agreement with you.
Yes. That's exactly how this debate goes.
It is.
You can't be us. You can't be in our minds as we see it. You have to take yourself out of our minds and go into someone who is just watching two people that they don't know and listening to what they're saying. If you lie over and over and over again, you win always. I'll give you an example. I'm going to say, Pete.
Use laptop in hell in your example, if you don't mind.
Pete, you didn't pay for that shed. You know what? Your wife prostituted herself so that she could get the money so that you could pay for that shed.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Well, that is partially true. There is some truth to that. Is Nick DiFabrizio, who built this shed, still here? I mean, I don't know what you would call it, a back rub, Nick. I think by prostitute, I mean, she made Nick a meal of eggplant and pasta.
No.
And Nick did pay for a lot of the shed, so there's a lot of truth to what you said. It was just a terrible example, Kevin, but I did see what you were getting at. Nick?
Wait, she donated a yoga seminar to my auction,
which could be considered prostitution by some people's standard. So my wife donated yoga to your charity. Oh, I mean, listen, as Kevin would say, different people hear different things.
She's going to come slap.
I want to follow up and just say, I don't know if it's because we're in West Virginia and I just see it so much on the news and on my Facebook feed. It's Trump, 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 and they don't care. I mean, literally no one cares what he says.
Yeah.
They think that he is the second coming.
Yeah.
And they don't care. Literally, they don't care what he says. And so that's why I think that tonight, no matter what my opinion is, he won because he looks like a normal human being and he looks measured and he looks rational.
Yeah, no, I think you're making good points, but I do want to just reel it back and say that I'm wrong to frame a conversation about
rational. How?
Hold on.
How in the fuck did he look rational in any way, shape, or form? Just because he's toned down doesn't mean he's rational.
No, but
he looked
calmer.
He didn't
less unhinged.
He didn't yell. He didn't interrupt.
He didn't shit and fall back in it.
How are we in any way, shape, or form in a position to normalize his behavior? He is scared shitless that he's about to lose, so he tried to temper his normal reaction. In no way, shape, or form should that be any condemnation about how great he's
got a really good point. And Pete, you used to say this a lot when he first got elected, which is let's not forget about the fact that none of this is fucking normal.
It's not normal. And I want to be clear. I am not normalizing his behavior. None of this is normal. I think Trump is literally a racist, xenophobic, fascist.
Okay, well then lead off with him being a racist.
Well, Lacey, you did text me saying, I think he's super normal, and I actually did vote for him, but I'm not going to say that when I go on.
But is he winning people over to his side?
Well, Karen, I think that's the important point. Hold on, everybody, calm down. I'm luckily I haven't had a drink for 22 days, Jay. So I'm completely calm. No, I think I just want to go back to my point, which was I shouldn't be asking who won and who lost. That's a silly question because of what everybody is saying right now in terms of most people have made up their mind. How did he come away? You know, how was each man their performance received tonight, that's going to be different based on who's listening. I think a couple of you guys said that. But more important, I think the best thing that was said is he does well in these types of formats because all he has to do is say unicorns are going to drop 401ks, whereas Biden or anybody with any kind of integrity has to sit there and tell the truth and be more forthright. And so, yeah, I just don't think anybody's minds necessarily get changed. But in terms of who wins or loses, I'm not sure that's even a good question either. I'm out.
Yeah, but Pete, if John Donvan was moderating Intelligence Squared, right? That's integrity at its finest, right? Well, and I'm not trying to give a shameless plug to John. His son is saying, Ben is like, I've seen him. Ben rocks. I love Ben. I'd kiss him if he was close. But the problem that we're dealing with here is that this is not a normal situation under any fucking spectrum that we are cognizant of. And all we're doing here is just placating Trump and his fucking base. And it's
who's pitiful. Placating? First of all, I love that your voice is saying that. Yeah.
This whole thing, all of us sitting here glued to this bullshit. Now, I know that the majority of us here are probably going to vote for Biden, already have, but this is a platform that bodes well to Trump because he can bend his response to seem more reasonable, and it's just a fucking farce.
I think all of that's fair and fine. I think that's a fair take, that this is a crazy situation and circus and dynamic, and let's not normalize it. I appreciate your passion on it. Jason lives down in Louisiana, surrounded by Trumpers, and he is happy to send you a fuck Trump bracelet, which he has sent a few listeners. Who else wants to jump in? I've got a few more minutes, I think. Dr. Barry, who is sitting in Harry Potter's library, according to his backdrop.
I did what you said. I took notes, but I won't go through the whole book. Just some gut reactions. I thought Kristen Welker did very well. I think her technique of just going to the next question and reading it right over the end of the last response worked really, really well. I thought Joe Biden looked great, and I thought he always answered with policy answers. I thought Trump looked good, but I think he always answered with talking points. He never really said what he planned to do with his next 4 years. The most interesting thing that Biden said was release your taxes or stop talking about corruption. I wish that every time Trump said something about you've been there this long, that he went back to that and said, you've been there 4 years, release your taxes. Yeah. I wish he hammered that every opportunity he had, because that was a really strong thing that he could have gone back to and done the repetitive thing that Trump does so well. The only other thing that I want to point out is when they got on the subject of race, Trump tends to say that he's done more for black people than anybody since Abraham Lincoln. So he obviously is a racist because he always skips over Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, even John Lewis, who died while he was in the office.
Well, he's talking about presidents, making me defend him.
Well, Johnson. You can't just say we've done more for black people than Abraham Lincoln.
Well, he's talking to Barack Obama's vice president. Maybe Joe Biden should react with that. I mean,
yeah. Well, I just believe.
I liked his answer though. Why didn't you do more? And he's like, because the Republican Congress have been begging someone to say that. The Obama administration would have done way more for way more constituents, especially black families, if they would have let them. They tried to do all kinds of things, and they had to get Republican buy-in. And even when they got the Republican buy-in, the Republicans still didn't vote for it.
Well, they always missed the boat on the fact that they did pass a comprehensive immigration package that the Republicans wouldn't vote on.
Well, 8 Republicans did vote for it in the Senate, and the rest of them didn't. It's a really good point, too. Doug in Wyoming, and thank you, Barry. Good comments. I got to wrap it up here, and I want to get to a couple more people. I see Jim in Michigan, Doug in Wyoming, Dan. Doug, go. Doug and Eliza, or is that Eliza? I get it wrong every time.
Yep.
Hey, guys. Good to see you.
Hey.
How's it going, man?
Thanks for joining us. I love these two people. I've loved them for a long time. I don't know that you've joined us in a Zoom before in one of these hangouts, but these are two of the finest people I know. They're awesome parents. They live in Wyoming, and Doug and I have been communicating for a long time. Go ahead, buddy. Sorry. I just want to say that.
Yeah, surrounded by a bunch of Trumpers here in Cold Crunch.
Yeah.
The thing is what I saw is one big thing that Joe can do and Joe can give, and he showed it the entire debate that Trump can never show, and that will attract. It's basically what the biggest, the most wanted part of the electorate has, and that's empathy. And he showed it. He was strong when he needed to be, but he showed a lot of empathy. And there was one thing I saw right at the end that my daughter would love, and I think a lot of people would love, is when it was over, he opened up his jacket and he put his pen in his shirt there. And how many of us have seen our grandpa do that, our uncle or something like that? And it just, everything about the man just exudes empathy for others. And I don't know if everybody saw that video that went viral where he was hugging the son of the Parkland victim. Yep. And that's what young people see. And I hope to God that's what brings young people forward in red states like this.
I think I've told the story before, but it take 30 seconds. After the election in 2016, we went up to Nantucket, where our friends have a place for Thanksgiving. It was the most miserable Thanksgiving ever. And they had there's 30 people at this Thanksgiving. Everybody was just shell shocked. Everybody probably remembers that Thanksgiving. Anyway, Nantucket is a place where Joe Biden would often visit. And Joe Biden was in Nantucket when we were there. And my wife hunted him down, outsmarted the Secret Service, knew what clothing store that Joe Biden was in. And Val, who was with Ava, who's now almost 16 at the time, they got around the Secret Service agent into this clothing store in Nantucket and demanded a picture with Joe Biden. He could not have been kinder. And Ava will never forget Joe Biden because Joe Biden put his hands on her shoulders and gave her a kiss on her head. My daughter. And she'll never forget that. And she didn't feel that it was inappropriate. She loved it. She loved meeting this old, kind man. And my wife made out with him. But moving on, Jim in Michigan.
I think we saw tonight, particularly at the end there, what President Biden's going to look and sound like. And it's just so refreshing to know that's probably going to happen come January. I am concerned about the Trump people and how the country deals with that. Yeah. Because, those people in West Virginia aren't going to change their minds just because Joe Biden got elected. And I don't think any of us know for sure what the hell Trump's going to do next either. I read something this weekend that talked about OAN network and his involvement. So
yeah, he'll try to do media if he doesn't go to jail.
No, he's not going to go to jail. That's not going to happen, Pete. Much as we all think he probably should, that's not going to happen. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Biden pardoned him. But it was just refreshing for me because I'm convinced Joe's going to win. And watching that last talking directly into the camera. And I thought Trump's worst moment is when he was talking about the people in Houston getting sick along the power lines. And basically they should shut the fuck up because they're making so much money. That was his worst moment of lots of moments. But
great to hear from you. I'm glad you weighed in, Jim. Ronnie in California.
Unmute myself.
You're unmuted. I got you.
Can you hear me? So I thought the bar is always so low that Trump always comes out ahead if he doesn't crap on himself. But I think this format where they had to take time and they could get paused, it helped Trump a lot because he didn't come across angry. And I do agree with Hope Hicks or whatever her name was.
Lacey.
I think that he's right. I think there's winner that he looks strong to his base, probably not to us. We think he's an idiot. But his base, he probably looked less insane. He's got Trump's got timing like a comedian. He's really good at setting up the zingers. I think we could prepare for it though. He does it all the time. He always projects. He always deflects at it. You'd think that they'd be ready for the same lines, but it didn't feel that way. Nonetheless, I think Biden was pretty courageous to make his comments on the environment. That took a lot of guts. He might take a little heat from it, but I think it was the right thing to do. And maybe 50 years from now, that might be remembered, for saying we need to come off fossil fuels. And lastly, I do agree with other people saying this. The comments on trying to say that people of color are better because they got a little money, even though they're getting sick or they're being brutalized by police or any other sort of harassment is entirely insulting. And the media and everybody else should call it out that, a few bucks in somebody's pocket isn't worth their health and their liveliness. So that was my take. And what are we doing for your birthday next week?
I think we should spend, let's stay here for another hour and make a plan for my birthday. Ronnie, thank you. That was great commentary. I will be 45 on Halloween. Anybody else before we have to wrap up with Dan? I'll come back to you in a second, Prakash. Dan?
Yeah. If you look at the 3 debates or the 2 debates and the 1 town hall, I think that first debate, even though Joe didn't do shit, Trump was such a maniac that it just completely flowed the tide the wrong way. Then when you came to the second debate or / town hall thing in the comparison, I think Trump still looked like a maniac and that flow kind of kept moving. I think this time with the debate, with this format, just it benefited Trump enough. I don't think it changed the tide, but I do think that the water's not flowing as much in the same direction. Not that that'll really make a difference. I think the informed people will see it one way. We definitely see it in one lens, and the uninformed people will see it in their lens. All the propaganda people will see it in their lens. But it's hard as hell to debate a liar, especially in this format.
It's a great point. It's a great point, as per what was said earlier about the scenario, the hypothetical about me that I think Kevin made. Great comments, Dan Leaf in California near San Diego, right there on the border is where Dan lives. He's a phys ed teacher. Love him. Prakash, Dr. Gata, you wanted to get back in here?
So I had a question for everyone, which is that did anybody share a concern like I did? I was actually a little concerned because the debate was essentially more normal, that would somehow hurt Joe more than I would want. I mean, I wanted him to walk away. We all want him to win. But does anybody share concern like I have that this is going to benefit Trump a little more than we feel comfortable with?
No,
and
nothing happened tonight.
I feel like we heard his crazy. We heard his crazy loud and clear because he wasn't such a maniac. So you heard how awful his disregard for humanity for people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
that's a good point, actually.
He's like, that's your
better
people,
that you think that way.
Yeah, like I want businesses to survive. I don't care that COVID is running rampant. Like I felt like it was just so much more clear. So that's my take.
Immigrants have low IQs.
Sadly, I think
that whole thing.
Sadly, I think the white women who voted for Trump the last time are in a middle income bubble, that they do have 401ks, they do have health insurance, and they're racist enough to believe that all the people coming for asylum, like Trump said tonight, are either low IQ or criminals of some sort. And sadly, I don't think this debate took him down the way that it should have. I think it gave him enough for the people who he hit home with the Joe, you were in office for many, for decades. And for people who hate politicians and think somehow this asshole is somehow a better answer because he's not from the political establishment. Meanwhile, he doesn't have a freaking clue how government works and how things should work. I don't think this is going to get through to them. And sadly, I just hope they stay home.
I think that's true of the last election. I think now we know who this guy is, and now we know how bad he is. And by the way, my friend, who's a white suburban mom, and her 3 white suburban friends are playing with their band Racist Enough in Paterson, New Jersey next weekend, if anybody wants to go.
I wish that were true. Sadly, I have family and friends who are living in that same
Racist enough is actually, I think, a good phrase. Like there's a spectrum of bigotry and ignorance that we all live on. I think it's fair to say we're all ignorant about other ethnicities and so on and other cultures. And what you're saying is racist enough that certain messages work. But I would just go back to saying and resetting by saying, I think nothing happened tonight. Nobody did anything that changed anything. If anything, Biden could have shit the bed and looked uneasy. I think that might have made people. The guy knocked it out of the park pretty much. Could he have done better in different moments? Could he have said certain things? Yeah, but I think he did the best he's ever done. And I think what Karen just said about Trump's, I respect everybody who is really afraid and anxious that this happened or that happened. I appreciate you voicing that, and I share it. But I said what I said. Anything else? I said what I said. It is what it is. I said what I said.
The question of the election integrity was conspicuously absent.
That's a great point. Yeah, what else was absent? I was waiting for the climate questions, and then my skin boiled when they were answered. Let me go
the
back.
absent was the fact that nobody mentioned that Trump is such a fucking lunatic.
You think someone should have mentioned that
I
Trump?
think it should have been mentioned the whole time, like I said before, a list of all his corrupt behaviors.
You think that should have been listed by the Biden in the debate? Yeah.
Would have taken the whole hour and a half.
Yeah, would have probably taken a lot. Every time his mic was open, he should have just listed all the crimes and impeachable offenses. John Donovan, can we go back to you for a final thought? Maybe your young son, Ben, who represents a demographic that is not here tonight, but we're glad he is, if he watched the debate.
We had a little conversation a minute ago as somebody who puts his pen in my jacket pocket. I mean, when I'm done with an event, I asked my son, is that like really an old guy thing? And he confirmed that it was. So that's my takeaway is I'm going to keep doing that, and I'm going to keep getting old.
When I was younger, I remember my dad would come home in a suit and always had inside pockets, and I always thought an inside the jacket pocket was the coolest thing. It meant you'd arrived somehow. And I finally got a London Fog jacket, and I worked that inside pocket to death. Never put anything in it but like crayfish and stones. But
crayfish in your pocket?
I didn't know what to say at the end of that joke, Karen. And I ended up that was a part of my childhood.
Pete, I'll just say I really enjoy hearing. And the other thing we were talking about is how we just wouldn't be having conversations tonight with people, farther away from where we are, West Virginia and Montana, Idaho, people in Texas. It just feels like you're all in this, you're next door or in the room next door or actually even in the same room. And it's a great thing that you pulled this together. So that's why I came in.
JP. Pretty darn cool.
I second that, Pete. Great job.
I'm so glad, John, that you showed up, that you're all here tonight. I really enjoyed it.
Now get your underwear back on. Will you please put your underwear back on?
I have not done my hands.
Prove you have pants on.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys very much for joining me here. I hope you'll be joining me on election night. We'll be here election night, and I am allowed to have a drink, according to me, on November 1st. So I'm looking forward to that, and I really appreciate you being a part of this community. Join the Discord community if you have any questions about that. We'll talk about it. But right now, I got to throw to my first guest, who is, of course, a professor at Indiana University School of Medicine, one of your all-time favorite guests here on Stand Up. He's also basically running all the testing and mitigation at Indiana University, and he's doing a great job, getting a lot of respect and accolades for keeping the kids, the student body, the 100,000 constituents, as he says, of Indiana University safe and COVID-free. Of course, he's the author of The Bad Food Bible, How and Why to Eat Sinfully. He has got his own YouTube page, very popular, Healthcare Triage, his blog, The Incidental Economist, and he's a regular contributor to the New York Times. Because he writes so much and does so much research about food, we start with a great conversation about food, and then we, of course, talk about COVID and everything else. Here it is on Twitter, at Aaron E. Carroll, the good doctor. Okay, I got him, everybody. All right, relax. I found him. I tracked him down. He's fine. He's just very, very busy. And before we start, Dr. Carroll, we're starting. Have you tried this donut, the ghost pepper donut?
I did. It was good.
Why?
Honestly, it was surprisingly good.
Why did they make it, and why did you try it? Who came up with this idea that thought is a pepper, a hot pepper in a donut?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I love spicy, love it. So and ghost pepper, I mean, I know it's a marketing gimmick, but you put ghost pepper in the title and I'm inclined to try it. So Amy and Cindy even bought this bag of ghost pepper chips that are shockingly spicy. And it takes a lot to make me say spicy. So I don't know. Someone was making fun of it on Twitter and I'm like, well, they were like, this is the signal of the end of the world. I'm like, can the world end after I try it? And so the next day, Cindy and I drove to Dunkin' and, I think she got a wake-up wrap or whatever thing was, but I got the donut. I think the ghost peppers and the sprinkles. But it was mildly spicy, and it was good. It was good.
But you're always open to try all kinds of new things in your mouth. I mean, there's no food that you say no to trying.
No. I think it was so. Do you know who Tyler Cowen? Tyler Cowen is he's an economist. He writes blog. Now I think he's a columnist. But I followed him for years with Exchange. And I had a chance to meet him at a meeting a couple of years ago. In fact, Amy was there too. So we had, I think, dinner with him. And he wrote a book on, I think it's called Economist Goes to Lunch. And it's basically, he's also really into food. And he knows, like, not just the famous restaurants, but he knows, it feels like everywhere, where the good restaurant that nobody else is. And he has a list of rules in his book about things you should consider when you're trying to find good restaurants. And one of his tips is that if you go into a restaurant and there's something incredibly strange in the menu, you order it. Because if it sounds weird and they're still selling it, it's got to be good. Because if it sounds strange and no one buys it, it's gone off the menu. They're going to lose money. Right. So more often than not, it signals something you should try, because that's why they keep putting it on the menu. So I think it's a good idea. I try all the time.
Someone like him, someone like you who appreciates food, who's really good at, curious about making new food. Do you live your life in a way where do meals get wasted? Do you ever run out of time and end up having to grab something on the go that just wasn't worth it? Or do you really like put everything you can into each meal each day? Like, where are you on that spectrum? Because I look at someone like you or someone like this guy you're talking about, Tyler, and saying they probably take every opportunity. This is what their life is about. This is how life is worth living, to have a good meal.
So I would say that, like, I rarely eat breakfast. The vast majority of my lunches are more about being quick and low cal and healthy than anything else. And when I eat dinner, I'll eat whatever is served for the most part. If we're going out to a restaurant, I tend to not think that way, that if I'm going to like spend money on a meal, I'm going to eat what I really want. And if I'm cooking myself, it is to the nines. Like, I don't ever want to hear about the easy, simple way to make something.
Right.
I always want to use the most, complex, thorough, recognized, difficult technique that people say, like, this is the best way to do it. So, like, I made dinner Tuesday night, and it was General Tso's, not General Tso's, it was Kung Pao chicken, in a wok, and I made our own fried rice, and it was homemade egg rolls too, because if I'm going to do it, we're doing it all.
Isn't that cultural appropriation? Isn't that offensive?
Not to eat. I'm not selling it. I'm eating it in my house.
Even if you were selling it, that would be fine too.
I can't make enough to sell it. Like,
I know, but I mean, as long as you didn't wear like an Asian rice patty hat while you were selling it, or
True.
A Mexican, like sombrero if you're selling Mexican. Like, I'm joking. The idea that it would be cultural.
No, I get it, but it's like, yeah, I'm joking too. But it's like, I won't do. Like, I don't want to know, like, how to make Kung Pao chicken in 2 seconds. It's
right,
like, no,
right.
I have to get out there and like mise en place it and like cut everything up ahead of time and start the marinade. And then like with the wok, like have to do the whole thing in the wok and immediately clean it up and then make fried rice, because God forbid we just eat white rice. And then, egg rolls literally that we're deep frying, that we've rolled up after creating, like, I don't know. I don't like to do it. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it all the way.
I think that's great. I'm
already working on Thanksgiving. Like, we're already planning it.
Someone who wrote a book called The Bad Food Bible, who understands health and nutrition and science the way you do, I think it's really valuable to see how anybody in with your kind of set of knowledge eats and behaves himself. And when you talk about lunch, I usually do something quick. And I mean, is there a standard? And I'm seriously very interested in this for myself, and I think other people are as well. How much do you vary what you'll eat for lunch? What are some
incredibly low?
What do you eat?
I eat just a couple of things. So it's either leftovers from dinner that's just a tiny portion, or today it's like over there we found this place called I think it's Chin's Asia Fresh that's like a mile away, and like Noah went to pick it up, and I have the same thing every time: shrimp and vegetable Sichuan stir fry over a little bit of white rice, and that's it. Because again, like they put the calories and the nutrition, and I'm like, oh, I can have that whole thing for like 300 calories. Great. Let's do that. Because I just don't like to, and sometimes I'll have like a salad or, something like a salad-ish kind of thing. But I am not eating big hearty lunches almost ever. I save that for dinner.
Do you always think about calories intake and output?
every day?
I mean, I've tried a gazillion ways to maintain or lose weight, and it's like I just find that I just have to be. It's not just calories, but calories are part of it. I'm also thinking about carbs and everything else, but I try my best to also make sure I'm not. It's so easy for me to overeat. I just have that inclination.
So how much?
I joke all the time. I don't remember ever being full. Like I could just eat and eat and eat. It's a problem.
That's interesting. I used to have clients when I was a personal trainer that would explain that to me, and I could never understand that. But I would you ate.
Well, it's the way sometimes some alcoholics talk about alcohol. Like, how do you just have one? I'm like, how do you just eat like one piece of pizza?
But your body limits with food or with drink. You either pass out or you're too drunk to have any more. Your body tells you, I can't have any more. Most people, I think. For me.
Yeah, I feel like I'm missing some kind of satiety met thing where I can eat an obscene amount of food.
Is that why the band operation surgery works? Because it limits the amount of food that you can fit in your stomach? What's it called, that surgery?
If people actually stick to the diet, there's lots of people that manage to overeat and compensate right around it. And I worry that would be me. But again, I'm not so overweight that I'd be a candidate for the surgery. So it's not like I can manage most of this with willpower. It's just, I mean, I don't ever get more than 10 pounds above what I'd like to be.
So you're also a total tech nerd, and you are a database guy. So, and I think you've written about this, I think more than once, or talked about it. You're basically the king of all healthcare media. So it's hard to keep track of where you're posting video, print, other people's podcasts, like you did on Vox this week, which is awesome. But how much has the watch, phone, or any other piece of technology helped you with your health? Because this weekend, my watch told me I broke a new record in how many calories I burnt. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, and made me think a lot about it. How much are you dependent on, or do you think it's helping you personally? And generally, what does the research say that it's doing?
I don't think it's done much for me at all. I think it's a nice gimmick, but it's not.
You don't monitor your sleep?
Say it again?
Do you monitor your sleep with your watch?
No, I take it off when I sleep. But I have CPAP, man. I sleep like a baby.
Right. Okay. So that's not a concern.
Great.
So it's not. So it's really not the calories, exercise, steps. You don't pay attention to it.
I try to I exercise 5 days a week. I like it's either the elliptical or long walks. I do monitor what I eat. Like I find that if I black coffee for breakfast and I eat a sensible lunch of 300 calories, and then I eat a reasonable dinner, that's great. And that helps me maintain lose.
It's always irked me when people say, and I'm the same as you, I almost never eat breakfast and I drink black coffee, but it's always irked me when people say I had coffee for breakfast. It's not a food. It's not, you can't, it's just a drink. It's just coffee.
I agree. I just don't yes. And I, to be honest, there was a period of time when I was not even eating lunch. I was just going straight through to dinner, which is almost like intermittent fasting.
Is that bad? I do that a lot. I have just lately, the last few weeks, I've had just some fruit until dinner. Apple, banana, pear.
I tried that, but then I feel like I'm overcompensating at dinner. I don't know. This is hard. It's just and then there are times where I'm I just know, given my genetics and family history, if I let go, I could gain a lot of weight.
Let's switch gears then into your job. How much can you say about what you're doing at Indiana University and how it's working?
Oh, I'm in base. I mean, I can. I think my official title is Director of Asymptomatic Testing and Mitigation. So I'm part of our.
You're the COVID czar.
Say it again?
You're anti-COVID czar at Indiana University.
I am one of them. I mean, I'd say I'm part of a team, but I am definitely part of the team that has been targeted with managing the pandemic for all of Indiana University and its 120,000 constituents. So it's pretty much, it feels like a full-time job right now. So mostly I'm in charge of asymptomatic testing, all of our mitigation testing, all of the, building up the labs, running our, non-symptomatic testing, figuring out the prevalence, where it all is, where disease is, trying to squash it out. And then I do a lot of communications work as well.
You said something that made me think that you have everything right there on campus. You have the tests and then you get the results in a lab on campus. You're not sending.
We literally are right as I speak, bringing the labs online, doing the tests and transitioning.
So when we think of these big testing companies, you are your own.
Yeah. I think our goal in the next shortly is to get up to about 5,000 tests a day that we can run in our own labs. And if we have to be able to ramp up capacity significantly further, I mean, I think our stretch goal, although I hope we never have to get there, will be like 15,000 tests a day, which would mean we're doing about as many tests at IU as almost the rest of Indiana is doing. So it's, we are building up massive capacity because we think that this is part of our core way of managing the pandemic for our students, faculty, and staff.
And my understanding here is that the issue is that costs a lot of money. IU has the budget for it, and economically, it makes a lot of sense because you will lose a lot more money in any number of scenarios. So how controversial has it been with, if you can say this on the record to me, at IU, with that you're spending millions of dollars on testing and the results that you're getting are what? Because you could see someone saying we're spending too much money, and that is exactly what's happening in a lot of different the federal government.
Who is saying we're spending too much money? Who says that?
Well, the governments, and I would imagine other organizations and schools are not, even if they have the money.
Have it. Let's be clear.
But if they do have
K to 12, unless they are granted that money from the government, does not have it.
State government. Well, both.
Yeah. Well, state governments don't necessarily even have it because, again, states can't print money. Like they can't just, they can't just create it. They can't run deficits. They can't make it out of thin air. So the states, I think, could do more, but like they've got a lot going on, and like K to 12 testing and schemes like that. Like IU is resourced, has the expertise, the organization, the fact like we could do this. But how is an elementary school going to do this? They're not going to build the lab, and they don't have the extra budget. But colleges can. Like, what is IU? $2 billion, $4 billion enterprise. It has the revenue to try to work this problem and fix it. I think a lot of universities do, but even there's controversy amongst universities. There's certainly arguments about how best to handle this. We have taken a much more comprehensive, robust approach, but I think that that's what we should have done. I'm thrilled the leadership is doing it. I'm, thrilled to be a part of it, but I think it works. I think, what we're seeing shows that whatever, our system works. It requires money and will.
Well, so let me ask you a question about, an article that you wrote at the New York Times back at the beginning of October titled "Testing Was Not Enough to Protect the White House." What's the difference with the White House and Indiana University?
Well, you've got to do more. Testing is part of it, but it's not entirely it. Like on top, you have to, what is that Seinfeld? It's like, it's not enough to take the reservation. You got to hold the reservation. Like, it's not enough to get the results. You got to act on the results. So when we find a positive, we grab that person and we immediately put them in isolation. Then we do contact tracing. We find everyone they were in contact with. We immediately put those people into quarantine so that they can't spread the virus to anybody else. The White House refused to do any of that. So they test people once, and then they say, go about your business. And they stripped off masks, and they went, we don't do any of that. Like, when you get a negative test, we don't take off our masks and stop, 6 feet apart stuff. And we stop social distancing. We have to do all of that even with the testing. And when you get the result of someone positive, you got to find everyone at that thing was a close contact. They all should have been quarantining after that because they were all intermingling and spending 15 minutes within 6 feet of someone who was infected. So they all should have been in quarantine. They didn't do the next step. It's, testing is necessary, but not sufficient to control this pandemic, especially in a setting such as like the White House or a college, or, depending on how big you want to make your geographic area, testing is necessary, but not enough.
Would you be comfortable saying that we know how to mitigate risk? We just have to have the resources to do it. We know how to do it.
Well, it's not just money. It's also will. It's funny because it's like people keep saying, well, how did you decide what to do? I'm like, I've been writing about this since March. Like, the IU playbook is no different than what I would have written for the Atlantic and the New York Times in April, saying this is what epidemiologists say we need to do. We need to have symptomatic testing so that we can, immediately find out when people are ill, if they have it or not, so that we can figure out what they need to do. And then we need to do contact tracing and isolation. And we need a legion of contact tracers so that we can get through this. I remember writing about Singapore and how they committed to contact tracing and finding out the source in hours. And that we need to do that. And you need asymptomatic testing because so much of the spread is so many people are asymptomatic and don't even know they have it, or pre-symptomatic, that we need some kind of screening system, especially in high risk areas, in order to find people who are asymptomatic but could be starting to spread or start an outbreak and get them into isolation and quarantine their close contacts the same way. And we need to do all this behavioral change. That's what the country needs. That's what everybody needs to do. And that's what IU is doing. The playbook is there. You just need to do it. And that takes money, and it also takes will. Like, you got to be willing to do what it takes and to make sure that everybody else does as well.
A lot of scientists are saying the next 6 to 12 weeks could be the toughest, the darkest, the most contractions and deaths. Do you agree with?
We've said that so many times. I think it's always true. I mean, like, when has it been good? Like, it's just right. So yes, here's a problem. And I've also been saying consistently since March or April that, if you look at the history of pandemics, if you look at the 1918 flu, it was bad in the fall and the winter of 1917, 1918. We had somewhat of a reprieve in the summer. And in the fall, the majority, like the 50 million people, died in November. Here we are. That's the problem, is that it's going to get cold. People are going to go inside. They're going to start being in tighter quarters. We're going to have flu season as well. Do I think it's going to be 50 million people? No, it's not going to be 1918 flu. We are much better at the whole medicine game than we were then. Tons of those people who died didn't die of flu. They died of super infection. And we can beat off a lot of stuff we could not then. But I think we'll see a spike. I think the world is seeing that. I mean, even in Europe, you're seeing everything is going back up. We knew this was coming, which is why we had a chance in the spring and the summer to squash this into the ground, and we squandered it again and again and again. We opened too early. We didn't take it seriously enough. We did not have a national coordinated resource response. We were not willing to put in the back-breaking work of figuring out ways to do everything safe, and here we are.
Rather than asking you, sometimes I feel like I should you have your own show on YouTube, which is great. Everybody should watch Healthcare Triage. But sometimes when I'm talking to you, I'm like, you ask the questions to yourself. So here it is. What is the question I should ask you about vaccines?
So I think the question would be like, I think the question I always get that sort of makes me roll my eyes as hard as I can is like, when is the vaccine going to be here? So like, then we'll all be safe. And I'm like, okay, first of all, maybe a vaccine will be approved in 2020. It's very possible.
2021.
No, this year. I mean, maybe a vaccine will be approved in 2020. It's very possible. But they got to make billions of doses, because contrary to what the administration or anyone else might say, pharmaceutical companies are international companies, and they're not just caring about the United States, and they're going to make vaccine for the world, not just us. So we're going to have to wait in line just like everybody else to get our share of doses. Then we got to put them all in vials. We need billions of glass vials and billions of syringes and the infrastructure to get them where they need to be and distribute them. And we got to make all that vaccine. That'll take time. Then they're going to prioritize who gets it. It's going to go first to like frontline workers, healthcare providers, as it should, and the elderly and people in nursing homes. And, we got to work through that population. We don't know how good the immunity will be. Will it be like MMR, where you get a couple doses in infancy and you're good for life? Or is it going to be like flu, where we give it out every year, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's okay? We don't know. How long will it last? What if it needs to be boosted in 4 months? We got to just keep boosting the high-risk people over and over again before we can even think. So we got to work through all of this. So by the time it gets to like college students, which is what I'm always being asked, like there is no group at lower risk than like healthy 21-year-olds. They're going to be last in line. When this will make a difference at like a college or university is far off in the future. We're all going to be doing the safety things we've been doing for some time.
The only thing you didn't mention there, and the thing that I have the most question and concern about, is just a lack of trust. Don't you have to have a certain percentage of people get vaccinated for the vaccine to be effective? And if 30 or 40% of people think that JFK Jr. is going to come back, and
it all helps. Like, this is the same argument that like people make about masks. Well, if everyone's not going to wear a mask, why do I have to wear a mask? And it's like, everyone's viewing the safety thing the wrong way. Every action that we take is additive. Every little thing we do. So, if we can get like 60, 70% of people to wear masks that are like 60% effective, that would probably be good enough to control the pandemic. We need more, not everybody. Vaccines are the same way. The more and more people get vaccinated, the more and more people are immune, the lower R naught and spread will be. Herd immunity just refers to the idea that so many people are immune that like it squashes all outbreaks. But we could get to the point where if like enough people are immunized, then if enough of us also wear masks and try to do the right thing, we might see this disappear. Like that's what we're hoping for. But people are looking for enough people to get immunized that I can strip off my mask and start partying in crowded bars again. That would take a lot of people getting immunized, a lot. And yes, that may be a problem, but we could still immunize enough people that we could be safer, much safer.
I have to talk to you about Halloween. You had this great piece in the New York Times. What has been the reaction? It posted on October 15th. It's titled, "Kids have suffered enough. Let them have Halloween." As a doctor, I think trick-or-treating seems relatively safe during the pandemic if done carefully. It's a great read. Everybody should read it. I've linked to it in the show notes. What has been, just quickly, the reaction to this piece?
Well, most people just think we should boycott Halloween because it's your birthday. But
they do. Well, that's makes me feel noticed.
There you go. No, well, okay. Well, now I was lying. So there you go. No! So the feedback goes two ways. It's interesting. It's like there are many, many people who I feel are in that binary all or nothing camp. They feel that if we do anything, that we are like exposing everyone to death. And that I don't care about old people, or I don't care about people with chronic conditions, that kids should have to learn to suck it up, that everyone is suffering, and that, you know, if we acknowledge that we should loosen something, that it almost is a betrayal of all the sacrifices that everybody has made. And then some of the feedback I get is the opposite of like, oh, screw it. Why don't we even care? Is there nothing? But, you know, there's a lot of people who just deny any of this. But I think it's a good, you know, it's a synecdoche. It's a good example of everything that we're doing wrong in this pandemic. And we say everything is either safe or unsafe. It's binary. It's like this or that. Is school safe? No. Yes. Is playing sports safe? No. Yes. Instead of saying like, well, we could make it. How do we make it safe? You know, what could we do to make it safer? So let's take school. My kids go to Carmel High School, which is an enormous, like 5,000 person high school. A bunch of the kids are online only, which de-densified it, smaller number of kids, but they went hybrid. So only half the kids who are left are in school at any day. So Sydney is in classes right now of like 11, 12, 13 people. It's much smaller. They are spread out at least 6 feet apart in every class. They are universally masked. The teachers are far away. They have staggered the entry and exit times of the bells so that kids aren't mobbed in the hallways. They have changed the way where they eat. So they've opened up all these areas for eating so that kids like sit at tables of one. The goal being no one has a close contact of anyone else at school.
Or any friends.
Is that?
Or any social life.
Well, the social life is different. I'm talking about protecting school. School is different. So it's like, so the idea being no one is a close contact at school. So even if a kid showed up infected at school, no one else would have to go into quarantine.
Right.
Okay, that's it. And they're doing a good job. They've been going since August. Like, it's going well. We've even had some school systems expand their offerings because it is going so well. Now, cases still happen, but almost all of them happen because of sleepovers or parties or parents like flouting the rules and being like, yeah, I have 20 friends over. I don't care anymore. It's not school. Is it happening during the school year? Yeah. But almost none of the transmissions are because of school. School can be safe or it can be unsafe depending upon what you do. I would take the same tack with Halloween. So yeah, should you have a party of 30 kids in a basement and bob for apples? No. Of course, not even if I want bobs for apples anymore either. But could we like figure out a way to like walk in families with small kids who love Halloween so that no one is within 10 feet of each other? Could we have all the candy individually wrapped and commit not to eating until we get home so that no one is consuming on the way? Kids are going to mask up. It's Halloween. Make them a fancy mask. Decorate it to match the costume. They can be masked. Could we put like little signs on each walkway to say like, this is 7 feet from each other so that you wait in line and don't bunch at the door? Could we commit to not opening the door, putting the stuff on the stairs and watching the people through a screen door so we can at least say hi, but not be within 6 feet of each other? It's on a Saturday. Could we extend the time, start at 3 p.m. so that we de-densify? Say maybe the smallest kids go 3 to 4, then the next stage from 4 to 5, then the next stage from 5 to 6. Get inventive. This can be done safely. We don't have to say trick-or-treating is unsafe. We can say, how can we make trick-or-treating safe? It's outdoors. Like, if I had to pick an activity that I could design and try to make safe for kids around on a holiday, like, it's harder to do better than trick-or-treating. Yeah. But we've lost that can-do attitude. We've lost the will. So it's not just resources, it's also will. And it is too easy to go, that's unsafe or that's totally safe. And that's the only two things we've got. And it's a problem because we're in this for a long haul. And complete abstinence doesn't work. Sometimes you got to figure out how to do stuff safely. That's the better risk mitigation path than to be like abstinence only.
It does seem, I completely agree with this piece. It just seems like, coming from you, your credibility on Halloween is a bit compromised because you're the same physician and expert who told us that there were never any razors or poison in the candy. I'm sorry, your audio is breaking up. What?
Yeah, I know, because there's not.
Oh, there isn't.
And again, you can mitigate that risk too, but that's just a phantom risk. COVID's real. Like, we should react in the same way that getting hit by cars on Halloween is real. So go out in the daylight and don't wear black costumes and be careful with your children. Like that, pedestrians getting hit by cars is real. Razor blades and candies, not so much. Poison, not so much. COVID is real. We should react to the stuff that's real.
Ethically, what do you think about an age limit on trick-or-treating? Do you think there should be a cutoff?
No. Why? Who cares? This is where it's like, life's too short.
Will you, if things ever return, would you do this? And I came to Indiana, and for my birthday, I said, I want you to trick or treat with me. You could wear a mask.
I would totally do it.
You would do it. You would go just with me, two adult men, aging adult men, trick or treat. Would you go as far as like a joint costume, some kind of hokey thing? Batman, Robin.
Can I hide my face, or do people have to know it's me?
I think it would go further online if we videoed it and people knew it was you and you weren't.
Yeah, I would even do it for you. Yes, I would. Do
you have a partner costume that you would suggest for you and I off the top of your head?
I would say Batman and Robin. You get to be Robin in those tight short shorts.
Fine with it. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Aaron Carroll, for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm very much looking forward to Halloween 2023, Batman and Robin.
Well, maybe even 2021 will be better, but this one's going to be rough.
Thank you, sir.
Anytime.
All right, there he goes. Tell him you heard him on the show at Aaron E. Carroll, everybody. If you've never checked out his books, get all of his books that debunk myths about your body and your health, including Halloween and many more other ideas, issues, and sexual myths is one of his books. And check out his YouTube page, Healthcare Triage. If you've never checked out Aaron's videos, they're awesome. Healthcare Triage, read his columns at the New York Times. And by the way, thank you very much for all of the new subscribers. I'm going to have to just gather up the names and give the shout out next week. Sorry I didn't get a chance to, but especially on Thursday night, a whole bunch of new people. Thursday, subscribing, people editing their pledge up. Thank you so much. I didn't give it a plug at the top of the show because I had a whole bunch of subscribers sitting there with me and I didn't want to hit them over the head with it. But I gotta promote it. Gotta do it. It is a free show, but it's not cheap. Costs me a lot of time and resources to make it happen, and I love to do it. And I thank you for your support. But sign up right now. Join the community at patreon.com/Pete Dominic, or just go to the paid subscription link in the show notes. Okay, so every Friday I talk with this next guy who is, I think, a great commentator of culture. He's also a super talented stand-up comedian who I've known and admired for a really long time. We always have thoughtful conversations. However, this conversation started, I had hit record before I was going to use this top part, but I thought it was so funny. Basically, I told him that I had to go to the bathroom, and that's what I was late for, and that I ran out of there, and, well, one thing led to another, and the conversation began talking about poop, and then we talked about penises, and then we got really highbrow and intellectual, but all of it is good. And I stand by this conversation. I love Christian Finnegan. He is awesome at Christ Finnegan on Twitter, by the way. Check him out there. Here it is, my latest conversation, which covered a lot of ground, recapping the week, as I always do on Fridays with Christian Finnegan.
I understand what it's like to have to poop. Do you want to go poop? And then
No, but I got that.
I have until about 7:40.
I have to pick up Ava at 7:15. I have to hold the poop.
Okay.
And I recorded all that. The part about me needing to poo.
Hey, people need to poop. They should be represented in the podcast world.
Do you, as a comedian, think that poop humor and fart humor is acceptable if done well? Do you have any rules?
I mean, the bar is pretty high.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to deny our humanity.
Right.
People have to poop. I remember somebody did, in the very early days of viral videos, somebody did a sketch about the show 24, where Jack Bauer had to take a break from busting up global conspiracies to drop a deuce.
That's good. That's good. See, that's good.
Yeah. You think a show over a course of 24 hours, the guy's got to poop at some point,
slows down, that sound effect, that beep, 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 that slows down too. See, that's a poop I think it's real funny. So. I think so. I had an argument with my wife like a few years back. The girls were a little younger, and I made a fart joke, and my wife was like, "It's just not funny." I'm like, "What? It's always funny. It's just it never stops being funny. I'm not trying to break into new ground with the originality of my humor, but a well-placed fart joke."
I mean, think of like the cheapest, crappiest, like I'm drunk at 2 a.m. food. It's like a McDonald's cheeseburger, but even worse. Like, so what's grosser than that? Like an Elio's frozen pizza or something where it's like, it's disgusting. It's worthless. It's garbage. But sometimes it does the trick.
Yeah, I like that. People love the metaphors. Is that a metaphor? Okay. So let's go from poop to dicks, because we had 2 dick sightings this week.
Sounds like my Saturday.
Hey! Ski pollen.